My name is Raymond Posch, and this is a new episode of New Ways of Being. And in this episode, I'd like to talk about raising your frequency with crystals. Now, in a couple of earlier episodes, I talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to get somewhat more into the details for those of you interested. And let me just tell you real quickly why. Um, so, and I'm going to dive in and tell you my whole story, but just to give you a kind of set the tone a little bit, I uh, I didn't know anything about crystals. I poo-pooed it really pretty much, and but someone prompted me to check it out, which I did, and what I found was. Um, it raised my vibration level, my energy. And that's somewhat physical energy, but it's more your spiritual vibration frequency. And in doing so, I had major breakthroughs in new ways of being, where before I struggled to, you know, to expand my intuition so that I could really connect more with the divine. That was in the past, it was very hit and miss. And after I started wearing pendants that raised my energy level by multiples, and I'll explain all of that. It changed that completely. Suddenly, I was able to talk with angels, have conversations with God, uh, along the lines of what Neil Donald Walsh does, and um, that just it, it changed my life, and it really has enabled me to have big spiritual breakthroughs, awakenings, and I want to share this with as many people as I can, help them understand this, and then help them really do what I've done with raising the vibration level to such a high level that you can connect with the divine in whatever form you want that to be, spiritual guides or angels, and whatever that might be. And some people just want to connect with their own soul, and that it helps that too. But it enables us to actually to evolve to a higher level of consciousness. So, with that said, let me jump into this. I'm going to be reading part of this actually from um, something that I've written for my website, and that's going to be announced very soon. But so let me get into the meat of this so that you can really um, see what I'm getting at and really hopefully begin to absorb some of it. Now, so over the last 3 months for me in particular, I've ended up learning so much about high energy crystals. And I want to share that with you. And I think this is important for everyone to learn about. Uh, anyone seeking to awaken or to grow spiritually by raising your vibration frequency, this provides lots of usable information. And specifically for me, high energy crystal pendants are the secret to major awakenings. And it's something that I discovered really by accident. I didn't know that was going to happen when I started exploring crystals. And I just say they changed my life, and I believe they can change everyone's life. I'll show you just real quickly here. Probably the lighting is not ideal, and you probably get a lot of reflection. But this is a golden mica pendant with a very large crystal on it, and another one attached. And then this is a large selenite crystal here, and it's got some small crystals attached to it. I am about to launch this week a store selling crystals like this that I make. Um, you can't really go find anything exactly like this um, elsewhere. But let me kind of say one of the reasons that I've learned that raising our vibration to a much higher level is so important is that the world now is so filled with electromagnetic radiation, EMF radiation, and so many other kinds of toxins, including the toxins of negative news and social media that's not altogether healthy. And and that I've learned is blocking people from making the kind of advances that they would like to make, because awakening, and especially talking with the divine, uh, raising our intuition, um, requires us to have a much higher level of vibration now than was needed even 20 years ago. Um, now the proliferation of smartphones, in particular, but cell phones and I mean cellular communication that fills the airwaves uh, has just had a bigger impact than most people realize. So let me tell you my story. And so, as I alluded to a bit before, up until this year, really, 2024, I didn't really believe in the power of crystals. And I had heard about spiritual people being into crystals for years, of course. And then I had someone as a guest on my New Ways of Being podcast, and on my actually earlier on my Our Spiritual Life podcast, and he told me that crystals really changed his life. He struggled with um, negative energies being attached to him in ways that, even though he learned many things about how to grow spiritually and to heal in many ways, he couldn't seem to uh, solve that issue for himself until someone convinced him to try crystals, and specifically pendants. And pendants, uh, any large crystal uh, can raise your vibration level, but pendants are the most powerful because they're very close to, when you wear them, you're very close to your heart center, um, and and they're easy to have with you by being wearable. Whereas other crystals, like these, for example, just by having them near, other crystals, especially larger crystals, can raise your energy level as well. They're just not convenient to take with you. And so, uh, let me get it up there. This is a large pyrite crystal, quite heavy. Pyrite is often called fool's gold, but it is a powerful crystal, and it can raise your vibration, and it can help you attract wealth. It has attributes that, you know, support higher confidence and and other characteristics like that. I have another one, uh, and these are probably the two largest crystals I have. This one is a Herkimer diamond. This is really quartz, but it's the only type of quartz that has facets on both ends, and that gives it uh, characteristics that help intuition and uh, other connection with the spiritual realm. Let me say it that way. This one happens to still be embedded in a matrix of dolomite. And what this particular combination does for me, it does multiple things, but the Herkimer diamond, which is just a gorgeous crystal, works like from the root chakra to the soul chakra, and then the dolomite, it helps me work through a connection to the earth chakra, or is that what they call it? Yeah, I think that's what they call it, but like up through my heart chakra. So it is very grounding and does many different things. So different large crystals can help in many ways. And so they have benefits, but am focusing primarily on pendants, like I said, because of their wearability, their portability, have it right there with you, close to your heart center. So that guest of mine convinced me to try crystals, and he wasn't selling me on it. He just told me about it. I thought, well, that's interesting, and why don't I give it a try? And especially since I knew that it had made such a difference for him. Not only did it solve a specific problem for him, but he's gone on. His name is Joshua Bloom. He's gone on to do some absolutely amazing things and achieve great success. He's done a lot in the spiritual realm, and he's making a real difference in the world as a quantum energy healer. Um, so, at any rate, I tried them, and I got a golden mica uh, pendant first, and right away I noticed a difference. I do folk music performances, and specifically in those, I could really notice a difference of my physical energy being a little bit higher, uh, but especially being more in the flow of the performance, and that makes a big difference. Because I interact a lot with my audience, which are primarily seniors in senior facilities, and um, being in flow is just a great enabler. If you've experienced flow, you know what I'm talking about. But there was more to it than that. And it's something I really couldn't define initially. Now I define it in terms of my context of being more connected to spirit, to my higher self, um, and more connected to the spirit of the universe and of the world. So for me, um, I I also, after that, by other circumstances, which involved some training I got from Joshua Bloom, um, that I learned that my spiritual vibration, because he taught me how to do muscle testing, which is a way of measuring the energy level, the vibration level. Um, I learned that my vibration has shifted much higher. And then I learned that I could talk with angels. Uh, and that was a huge breakthrough because I had tried that somewhat before, and even when I shifted into the highest, uh, being focused on the heart area, and even shifting into unconditional love, I just was not clicking to allow that to happen. And but I went on after that. Uh, I I I raised my energy level, and I'll kind of walk you through the story in more detail, by a substantial amount. And at that point, then I learned I could actually have conversations with God, which I had very much wanted to do. And not that I'm special in any way, except having elevated my energy level. So other people can do this as well. But, like I always wondered, how did Neil Donald Walsh, in his Conversations with God books, I could see that it was totally truth. I could feel it when I read his books. How did that happen? And all of a sudden, I was experiencing it myself. I'm not going to get heavily into that aspect in this episode, so I'm going to focus on the crystals and raising your frequency, and I'll focus on communicating with the divine in another episode. But so, but if you are able to, wouldn't you love to be able to communicate with the divine in whatever form you want that to be, whether it's being more in touch with your soul, just having better intuition and feeling it. I wanted that as well, and I struggled with that. But if you could actually have conversations with aspects of the divine, and the divine is all one, okay? And since I've gotten into this, I've really learned that in many ways it doesn't make uh, much difference at all, or if any difference, to distinguish between your spirit guides or angels or your soul or God in most cases, that you could communicate with them as if it's all one whole, so uh, but some people, like to be able to talk with angels. They feel like, boy, that's kind of risky talking with God, and they don't need feel that way, because God is total love and total loving, and wants to help every single person on earth. But at any rate, so I'll talk about the divine in all of its different forms, and different people might be inclined to approach it differently. But the thing that's had such a profound impact for me is that, I had heard that people with really high intuition could surrender more, and because they, had a higher level of trust, I guess, in the divine, and could surrender and let the divine guide them in their life more. Well, that's exactly what's happened for me. I've turned that over, I could say. I'm trusting the divine to guide me, and I get that guidance from God directly, or from angels, my guardian angels stepping in to help me in certain ways, or my spirit guides stepping in to help me in certain ways, and and my soul as well, my higher self. Now, since all of this has happened, I've also become much more integrated with my soul. So I have a more now I would say that I am the embodiment of my higher self, my soul. It is fully integrated with me much more than before. I'll get into that in another episode. Let me go on and talk about why you want to get into crystals, and especially pendants. Um, but all of that has changed my life, and I've learned to really be to live and really and to be in much more powerful ways than I had ever experienced before. And I had experienced significant changes, but wow, this makes such a difference. Uh, um, over the last several months, I also took several courses that uh, influenced me, and had are factors in what I've been going through. But at the same time, also I've been acquiring some different crystals, not a lot of them, until I have started making these crystal pendants myself, and I'll expand on that. But they really raise your subtle energy. When people talk about spiritual vibration or frequency, probably the best way to think about it is an real energy. It's a subtle energy, and that means that it you can experience it, you can feel it, but science hasn't learned how to measure it yet. Okay, so uh, but at any rate, higher vibration opens the door to amazing spiritual experiences. And so far, I know it's still in somewhat abstract terms that I'm talking about, but I can assure you these are such powerful personal experiences that you would love it. You would love to feel it. You would love to experience it. So, and with all of this now, this very ongoing kind of communication and guidance I receive from spirit, or the source of all the energy that is, and it is very much true. Everything is energy, and uh, and the universe and God is all one energy, one consciousness, and I would express it as it moves into the physical realm, it takes a form of vibration, energy. Um, but I've been guided now that I've actually spent some time learning how to make pendants, and it took I had to invest quite a bit of time. It was surprising of learning how to do that. It's not a trivial thing. Um, but I'm being guided to offer pendants, make them available to others. I can't do it for free. I will be selling them, but and I'm also going to offer training on how to use the pendants, how to make quantum energy shifts, which I've learned, and how to communicate with the divine and interact with the divine to receive that kind of ongoing guidance that I mentioned. Um, that also takes some learning, because I didn't just learn it instantly. I've had, but the interesting thing is that once that you could communicate with the divine, now I speak of it as the divine wholeness, because I understand much more. Like, for example, when I learned to talk with angels, I asked, well, who am I talking with? And they said, does it matter? They said I was talking with a group of angels and interacting with them, and with my spirit guides. It's the same thing. It's a group of advanced beings, and they say, we're all one whole. Once you break the bonds of physical body, even either through death or transition in that way, or through advancing to a high enough level of spiritual development and vibration and consciousness, uh, you begin to get a much stronger sense of just how powerful, how whole everything is, how it's all one uh, consciousness, one energy ultimately. So, so again, I want to emphasize this is important because it helps you experience real awakenings and real spiritual breakthroughs in your life that will make a big, big difference. So, I am going to be offering crystal pendants, high energy pendants. And I will be announcing it within a week. I'm pretty sure of this episode. I've already set it up the store, online store on my website. I just need to do a little more testing to make sure it's rock solid before I launch. But and a version of what I'm talking about now in this episode will be available that you can read on the website as well. Now, one other thing is that through, well, and I think I started to say this and didn't, I can, in my dialogues with the divine or conversations, and it is two-way, interactive. It's not just a download for me. Other people who channel can download lots of information at once and may not interact with that divine in the way that I do. But I have a conversation. I ask a question, hear an answer, ask another question, and it's a dialogue. And when you can do that, then you can ask. I can ask for answers of questions that I have, and I can ask for guidance, and I can ask for explanations, getting into some of the details. But one of the things that I've asked is that one of the things I learned about crystals is that on the majority of crystals, they absorb energy from the person that they're interacting with over time. So like someone wearing a pendant, wearing a crystal, they absorb that person's energy so that it becomes less and less useful, perhaps, or less and less responsive. But what I learned was I could very easily clear crystals when I'm at a high energy. But I also asked the divine, can I infuse intention and energy into my crystals and any that I make that would eliminate the need for worrying about that? Either negative energy accumulation, which you would particularly not want, or even just neutral clogging up of the crystal. I am able to now block that buildup just through the power of intention and the participation of the divine in making that a part of that crystal. So now I want to get more into talking about the energy and energy testing in some depth so you can get a feel for it, because I'm going to talk about some real numbers so you can appreciate how high energy that we're talking about. And but in my store, I'm going to offer 3 different kinds of pendants. Uh, one is a mica pendant with an attached emerald crystal. Uh, and then I've got 2 sizes of selenite crystals with 4 small attached crystals. Um, and one I call small, but it's really thin would be the correct word. It's thin, it's an 1/8 of an inch thick. And then, but if you increase the mass, like in this case, I go to 3/8 inches of selenite crystal. That's 3 times the mass, 3 times the power, if you will, uh, and 3 times the vibrational strength. And they will have, this one is a first one I did, and it's a little bit shorter than I'm going to have now. But this one only has 3 crystals attached, but the ones I'm now making are a little bit, it's a little bit longer, and it has 4 small crystals attached. And those crystals have specific benefits that I will touch on before I'm done. Um, so both aspects of these are important. I mean, the energy vibration frequency is one thing that's very important, but also important is that each type of small crystal attached has attributes that you can also tap into that support you in having like greater intentionality around love or abundance or success or protection from negative energies, many different types of things. And also, if you were really to get into the study of them, they help specific physical and psychological issues as well. And so they can help you develop and heal with those things in mind. So now I want to get into talking about my crystals and vibrational frequencies, and especially about energy testing. Okay, because there is a solid, proven way of testing these. It's a little bit tricky, but I think most anyone can learn it. You just have to be careful about how you do it to make sure you're being accurate and valid. But mica and selenite are 2 of the most powerful energy amplifying crystals around that can work well for pendants. Lots of other crystals, if you have a large enough one, will raise your vibration, maybe not quite as much as these. Mica, in my testing, is the most powerful. And selenite is quite powerful as well, being high in vibration. But also, when I get into the testing part of it, I want to point out that raising your energy level, how high you can go, depends on some of your own characteristics, like how open you are and how willing you are to open to these higher vibrations. You may have blockages that prevent it from being as high as it could be. I haven't done all of the research on that I want to do, and I've already got a spirit guide that is very knowledgeable about crystals, and I've had conversations with. But so I'm pointing out that I think I think most people can experience the same kind of lifts in vibration that I've experienced, but it it may, I think the delta, the increasing amount, is probably going to be similar, for different people. But the baseline from where you're coming from, um, and and the and maybe some aspects of how much you can increase may be different from person to person. So, um, but you have to be open to intuition, um, and so. But the key thing is that we want a big jump in order to be able to communicate with the divine, and specifically, I've been told by the divine that the target level that most people should seek and work towards is 100,000 vibrations per second. But I'm going to give you some more information now to help put that into perspective. Um, so I'm going to use the example of, of my selenite crystals, like for my small selenite crystal or my thin one, it for me, it has a total effect of raising my energy to 120,000. And the four small crystals on my pendant, the thin selenite pendants, only contributes about 5,000 of that. Okay, so just to make that clear, so the size has a big factor, and a particular type of crystal has a factor as well. But the target we should all be working towards is 100,000 or higher. Now, so subtle energy is not currently detectable or measurable by science. So the measurable part is key, but it is raising subtle energy. And what was discovered quite some time ago, actually, I've been wanting to go check on a date on this, but was that muscle testing, or it's also called kinesiology. It was learned that through kinesiology, you can test the truth of something in the physical world. And the way that typically works is like the way chiropractors, many, if not all chiropractors now practice kinesiology. And what they do is it's been a long time since I've that I've actually done it with a chiropractor, but they'll ask you to hold your arm stiff, and they will test it in some way. They will say, they'll do something, or maybe they'll give you aromatherapy and say, does that help you? Is that helping you? And if the answer is no, then your arm will go weak and drop. But if it is true, and if it is helping, your arm will stay firm. Well, there's a way an individual can test their own, but again, I'm not teaching that in this lesson. Okay, but David Hawkins was a psychologist, psychotherapist, and a spiritual teacher as well. And he had gone through this very powerful awakening himself. And he learned that he could test the level of human consciousness as a truth in the universe through muscle testing. And he did that. And what he talks about in that book, if you happen to be familiar with it, is the measurements he uses is on a logarithmic scale, which is exponential. the measurements for that I'm going to be talking about for measuring vibration frequency is a linear scale. So the testing of levels of consciousness has to be approached in a different way because consciousness does evolve and grow exponentially, whereas vibration level can grow linear. You can grow by 1,000 and another 1,000 and another 1,000. But as you go from being in depression all the time to being fully empowered, let's say, and out of depression, fully empowered, engaged in life, and at the level of unconditional love, that is a huge, huge difference. And that's like going from 50 or 100 in David Hawkins measurements to 500. But again, that's not a linear increase. It's a multiplicative increase. I think it's every 100. See how, I can't recall now how you say that in the correct way, but so I'm talking about linear, and it is possible for anyone to test their own energy level and the truth of that energy level. But I've learned it takes some a lot of practice and paying attention to some very specific things. And I want to hold that for another time. So let me tell you about my experience, how I came to learn how to do muscle testing and how I came to test my own energy levels, and then ultimately how I've learned to test and what I've discovered when I've tested my pendants and some of my other crystals. So I got some training from Joshua Bloom that was about quantum energy transformation. But he did teach muscle testing to the people that were in that class. And so what happened was in that class, before he taught us how to do that yet, I removed, and at the time I had two pendants, one that I made and one that I bought. And I took them off and set them aside. And then I tested my energy level based after, once he taught us how to do it, I tested my energy level and I tested at 900 vibrations per second. And then I stopped for a minute and I I put myself into the state of unconditional love very quickly. I wasn't in full meditation or anything like that, but just doing it very quickly, like going into it in 20 seconds. I tested again and I was at 19,000. So that's how high unconditional love can raise you, if not higher. Now, if I had gone even more deeply into it, I probably would have gone much, much higher. So what I had gone from 900 to 19,000, and then I put my pendants back on, and when I retested, and at that point I was still probably carrying over some of the unconditional love, but it was primarily the pendants that I was really measuring. It was approximately 80,000. And so let me just mention here that when I'm doing a quick kind of testing, what I would normally do, I test in increments of 5,000, and then if I want to get a little bit more precise, I might test in increments of 1,000, but I don't go, I don't test it at the level 5 or 10 or even 100 usually. Um, so in that training, I learned some quantum techniques of how to raise the energy level and um, and how that could become permanent. So um, since then, since getting that training and that muscle testing training, primarily uh, with no, so that's since February of 2024. If I have no pendants on and with no large crystals close by, and I test my own energy level, it's always right around 70,000. Okay. But I know how at any time I can raise my energy level to over 200,000. Uh, and I can actually do that without without crystals. I've actually tested that. But the other point I want to mention is, but simply by having like large crystals close by, like the pyrite or the Herkimer diamond that I told you about, they will register in my energy level. So when I measure for trying to report on it accurately, I now actually make sure that always that it's in an I take off, my crystals are away from where I'm measuring. In fact, I usually leave my crystals at my desk and my pendants, and I go do my measurement outside. So I need to be fairly far away, or you need a closed door in between, and I've even, I even I put a shield of metal over the crystal to block it, so I'm not picking it up from even 30 feet away. And you do in train with your crystals. Once you've used them for even a short period of time, within days, you will begin to be fully entrained with that crystal. So it could be close, it could be in the next room, and I will register it. So I have to make sure it's far enough away or screened with metal. So let me tell you about the crystals that I'm making now and their energy level to give you a feel for what you might experience. So when I test, so I'm going to be talking about my measurements, my own energy being affected by these crystals. Again, if you did it, you might be different. I believe now, with asking the divine a number of questions that I've asked, that I can train someone else to achieve the same levels that I'm achieving. Okay. Again, that's dependent on clearing blockages that you may have to intuition, and even to energy, subtle energy itself, which is possible. Okay, so my baseline energy with no pendants, I've told you, is 70,000. Then my energy, when I have just my mica pendant on, and I've added, when I first got it, I didn't have any additional crystals on it. Now I have a small emerald on it. My energy jumps up to 135,000. That's an increase of 65,000. Okay. So the delta that I'm talking about, the amount of increase, becomes important, since I don't know what your base might be, but I think you would achieve most of the delta. Okay, so if you were at 0 and you wore a mica pendant, I think you will test at approximately 65,000. Could be less. It could also be more. You could be operating at a fairly high base level as well. If I test my energy level with my small or thin selenite pendant, which has 4 small crystals attached, it measures at 120,000. That's a delta of 50,000 vibrations per second. Now, if I test my energy with one large selenite pendant and 4 small crystals, it tests at 135,000. So you can see that the large crystal, the small selenite, the thinner selenite, bumped me up to 120,000. The large selenite bumps me up to 135,000. So that extra crystal mass helps me get a greater increase. That increase is 65,000. Now, let me just tell you about a couple more possibilities, because I think people will want to consider going higher. When I measure my energy with one mica pendant and one small selenite pendant, it's 160,000. That's a delta of 90,000, an increase of 90,000. If I measure it with one mica pendant, and again, mica has a higher energy level than selenite. But if I measure it with one mica pendant and one large selenite pendant, it's 190,000. And that's a delta of 90. That's a delta of 120,000. So if you were at 0 and you wear these 2 pendants, I think your increase will be around 120,000. So that's more than the 100,000 that we're looking for. All right. Now, I also measured just to see what if I have 2 small selenite pendants, that my energy is at 140,000, and that's an increase of, or a delta of 70,000 for me. So, or if I have 2 large selenite pendants, the thicker ones, I measure at 160,000 for myself, and that's a delta of 90,000. So you can see that the pendants, you'll have a number of possibilities. If you were at, pure unconditional love of approximately 10,000 or 20,000, one of these pendants could put you over 100,000. Definitely 2 will put you over 100,000. So these I can't I can't understate this. These high energy crystal pendants are something that are readily available. You don't have to work years or have all these breakthroughs of how to get your energy up. You're always, without something that's a big boost, you're always fighting the EMF radiation that's around you. And, everybody has a smartphone close by them these days, but it comes from other sources as well. And most people are fighting the toxicity of listening to the news and knowing how bad things are in the world. And as much as you want to boost yourself up, above that, and many people can do that, but you can come down so easily. One thing happens that will ruin your day, and you're down at a very low energy state. So uh, this this is something that I think is important to anyone that wants to change their life, and especially if you want to do it in a powerful way and really begin to experience abundance. I've talked before about, and I'm going to eventually do a special episode on it. I have been also over the months um, shifting into a state that I call heaven on earth, and that in itself is very powerful. So that I would think lots of people would like to experience heaven on earth, and you can, but it depends on you raising your energy level. Uh, Now, so I am also, and it's going to be somewhere in the summer, fall time frame in 2024. I expect to start offering training to help people achieve higher permanent base levels of energy or vibration. But much more than that, I'm going to help people understand how they can really um, themselves understand how they can make additional breakthroughs and changes that are spiritual in nature in their life, such as um, communicating with the divine and having or having higher intuition. But any kind of awakening often has very powerful effects that you feel. And those are nice in themselves, but I know I have one spiritual teacher who teaches, you know, ultimately that shouldn't be your goal. When you get to the point that you are really operating in the world in a more powerful way, a more awakened way, a way that's more at a higher level of consciousness, then that changes your life. I mean, it can bring you greater abundance, for example, but probably more importantly, from a spiritual perspective, is wouldn't it be wonderful to be making everything that you do have a positive effect in the world? Yeah, I want to see the world ultimately change, and I want to see other people experience the kind of joy and just incredible, amazing way of life once you turn it over and let the divine guide you in life more, because divine is all good, and to be making a difference as well. All of that is incredible. So let's see here, and I probably have already run much longer than I wanted to, but let me just mention that my selenite crystals the selenite pendants, I should say, are going to have come in 5 different crystal combinations that you can, for smaller crystals on them. Um, One that focuses on energy or vibrational frequency is, and this is on the selenites that I'm talking about. We'll have tourmaline, rose quartz, blue kyanite, and malachite, all of which help support um, energy, not just the vibrational level, but energy in multiple ways, such as cleansing negative energy, or changing energies in your chakras. So they support energy in multiple ways. Going to have another combination that I call protection, and that's especially from negative energies. And some people experience negative energies a lot and struggle with dealing with that. The crystal combination that I'm using is shungite, red jasper, amethyst, and I started making them with rainbow fluorite, but I'm now changing to labradorite. Then another combination for abundance and success, and the crystals on that are shungite, blue chalcedony, citrine, and malachite. And then another combination for spiritual awareness and love. And the crystals on those will be amethyst, emerald, sapphire, and rainbow fluorite. And in particular, my crystal guide has told me to make the rainbow fluorite either blue or green or violet. Rainbow fluorite comes in a whole bunch of colors. So I will be using just those three colors to support spiritual awareness and love. And then I'm going to offer a custom combination with tourmaline, amethyst, blue kyanite, and blue chalcedony. And that's a bit of a combination of energy and spiritual awareness and abundance. But especially energy and spiritual awareness or love. So I hope that you go check out my website, raymondposch.com. And by May 3rd, I should have my store launched, and you would be able to buy one or more crystal pendants that would help you in these ways. And it actually, I tell you more about them as well. They have different types of necklaces that vary by the type of pendant. But I hope you found this interesting. It is absolutely life-changing, and and I know for a fact that it will not be just something that I experience. That these crystal pendants will give you huge increases in your vibration level, and that is a key. Now, there are a few other keys that also will be important, and later I will talk about those somewhat in some episodes, and I will also offer training to really dig into it in depth. So have a great day and a great life. Go check out the pendants, and especially as soon as I've launched, that will be not today, but in a few more days' time. And feel free to reach out if you have questions. On the website, I provide contact information that you can email me or call me on the phone if you want. And I would love to have conversations with you about that. You have a great day and a great life.